We are now on video 4. Um, the sale is a lot of information at once. Um, so the notes from yesterday and today will help you through the activity for the next day and a half. And then we will pick up where we left off. We'll talk about chemical compounds in the cell. And then hopefully we will talk about ATP, osmosis, um, diffusion, and hopefully the big chunk of cells will be done. Um, so mitochondria. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and it produces ATP, which gives the cell energy. Um, so pretty much like you would eat food, drink water, so make sure you're not starving or dehydrated so that your body would have energy. The mitochondria pretty much does the same thing to the cell. Um, so the most important part of this is the powerhouse of the cell and produces ATP. So the endoplasmic reticulum involve In the transport of substances through the cell, it plays a primary role in, we'll talk about carbohydrates, um, lipids, we'll talk about steroids and proteins. Um, I think on Thursday. So it is what its number one job is. Um, it's pretty much like a train, and it transports materials through the cell. Also, I mean, it could be a truck. However, you need to remember it by, but its number one function is to transport substances through the cell. Ribosomes. are attached to the inner surface of the endoplasmic reticulum. They're small grain-like bodies. Other ribosomes bond with floating in chloroplasm, which is that jelly stuff inside of the cell. Their function as factories to produce proteins and releases some proteins through the wall of the endoplasmic reticulum, mouthful, from the inner of the ER. So when you get into high school, and especially when you get into college, endoplasmic reticulum is usually called ER. So you don't have to say the whole thing all the time. The proteins will be transported into, and it's our next slide. So yeah, very quickly write this down. The Golgi bodies. As you move through the ER, you'll see structures that look like a floating collection of sacs and tubes. These structures are called Golgi bodies. It can be thought of as the cell's mailroom. The Golgi bodies receive proteins and other newly formed materials from the ER, packaging them and distributing them to other parts of the cell. The Golgi bodies are also release materials outside of the cell wall. The chloroplast. So, have you noticed the many large green structures floating in the cytoplasm? Only the cells of plants and some other organisms have these structures. So, chloroplast is mostly found in plants and is the primary organism for photosynthesis, which we will talk about later. And I think we'll talk about photosynthesis. I want to say before or after Christmas. Definitely after. It will be February and March. So the chloroplast captures the energy from the sunlight and uses it to produce food for the cell. It is the chloroplast that give plants their green color. So if you wonder why it is green, now you know why. Vascules. So they store the food, they store the water, and other waste in the cell. Most plants have one large vascule. Some animals do not have vascules, others do. It stores the food and other materials needed for the cell, and it also can store waste. Most of the water in plants is stored. When the vascules are full of water, they may make the cell plump and firm. Without much water, the vascules will make the plant wilt. Lysosomes are part of the cell. It protects the cell by engulfing foreign bodies entering the cell and helps in cell renewal. So, lysosomes are small and round structures that contain chemicals that break down large food particles into small ones. Lysosomes are also broke down old cell parts and release substances so that they can be used again in this sense. You can think of lysosomes as the cleanup crew. Lysosomes are mostly common in animal cells than plant cells. Although lysosomes contain powerful chemicals, you need not to worry about your ship safety, meaning your cell. The membrane around a lysosome keeps the harsh chemicals from escaping and breaking down the rest of the cell.
Cells are the smallest living units of an organism. All cells have three things in common, no matter what type of cell they are. All cells have a cell membrane, which separates the inside of the cell from its environment, cytoplasm, which is a jelly-like fluid, and DNA, which is the cell's genetic material. There are two broad categories of cells. The first category is eukaryotic cells. They have organelles, which include the nucleus and other special parts. Eukaryotic cells are more advanced, complex cells, such as those found in plants and animals. The second category is prokaryotic cells. They don't have a nucleus or membrane-enclosed organelles. They do have genetic material, but it's not contained within a nucleus. Prokaryotic cells are always one-celled or unicellular organisms, such as bacteria. So, what are organelles? Organelle means little organ. Organelles are the specialized parts of a cell that have unique jobs to perform. Let's start with the nucleus, the control center of the cell. The nucleus contains DNA, or genetic material. DNA dictates what the cell is going to do and how it's going to do it. Chromatin is the tangled, spread-out form of DNA found inside the nuclear membrane. When a cell is ready to divide, DNA condenses into structures known as chromosomes. The nucleus also contains a nucleolus, which is a structure where ribosomes are made. After ribosomes leave the nucleus, they will have the important job of synthesizing or making proteins. Outside the nucleus, the ribosomes and the rest of the organelles float around in cytoplasm, which is the jelly-like substance. Ribosomes may wander freely within the cytoplasm or attach to the endoplasmic reticulum, sometimes abbreviated as ER. There are two types of ER. Rough ER has ribosomes attached to it, and smooth ER doesn't have ribosomes attached to it. The endoplasmic reticulum is a membrane-enclosed passageway for transporting materials, such as the proteins synthesized by ribosomes. Proteins and other materials emerge from the endoplasmic reticulum in small vesicles, where the Golgi apparatus, sometimes called the Golgi body, receives them. As proteins move through the Golgi body, they're customized into forms that the cell can use. The Golgi body does this by folding the proteins into usable shapes, or adding other materials onto them, such as lipids or carbohydrates. Vacuoles are sac-like structures that store different materials. Here, in this plant cell, the central vacuole stores water. Going back to the animal cell, you will see an organelle called a lysosome. Lysosomes are the garbage collectors that take in damaged or worn-out cell parts. They are filled with enzymes that break down this cellular debris. The mitochondrion is an organelle that is the powerhouse for both animal and plant cells. During a process called cellular respiration, the mitochondria make ATP molecules that provide the energy for all of the cell's activities. Cells that need more energy have more mitochondria. Meanwhile, the cell maintains its shape through a cytoskeleton. The cytoskeleton includes the thread-like microfilaments, which are made of protein, and microtubules, which are thin, hollow tubes. Some organisms, such as plants that are photoautotrophic, meaning they capture sunlight for energy, have cells with an organelle called a chloroplast. The chloroplast is where photosynthesis happens. It's green because it has a green pigment called chlorophyll. Plant cells also have a cell wall outside of their cell membranes that shape, support, and protect the plant cell. Animal cells never have a cell wall. There are many other unique structures that only some cells have. Here are just a few. In humans, for example, the respiratory tract is lined with cells that have cilia. These are microscopic hair-like projections that can move in waves. This feature helps trap inhaled particles in the air and expels them when you cough. Another unique feature in some cells is flagella. Some bacteria have flagella. A flagellum is like a little tail that can help a cell move or propel itself. The only human cell that has a flagellum is a sperm cell. In summary, remember, eukaryotic cells are plant and animal cells with a nucleus and membrane-enclosed organelles, while prokaryotic cells are unicellular organisms without these things. All cells have a cell membrane, cytoplasm, and genetic material. And even though only plant cells have chloroplasts, both plant and animal cells have mitochondria.
Oh, I meant to change the slide. So this is a bacteria cell. It does have a cell wall and a cell membrane, but it does not contain a nucleus. And we will expand our bacteria later on because we will be doing a lab on creating bacteria. Now, if you do what you're supposed to, you will get to participate. If you or your lab partner does not, you will do an alternative assignment, which will not be fun. So don't choose violence.
Today, we are going to take a closer look at the structure and function of a prokaryotic cell. Before, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it already. Prokaryotic cells are the simplest and smallest living organisms. They are estimated to have been on Earth for 3.5 billion years. Prokaryotes can be divided into bacteria and archaea. Prokaryotes are found in many different environments, including soil, water, and the human body. The structure of a typical prokaryotic cell consists of several components. Firstly, many bacteria have an outermost layer of carbohydrates that is called the capsule. The capsule is sticky and helps the cell attach to surfaces in its environment. Also, prokaryotes possess a cell wall surrounding the cell. The cell wall provides structural support and protection for the cell. The composition of the cell wall can vary between different types of prokaryotic cells, but it is typically made up of peptidoglycan, a complex polymer of sugars and amino acids. Next, the inner of the cell is surrounded by a plasma membrane that acts as a barrier between the inside of the cell and the external environment. The plasma membrane is made up of lipids and proteins and is selectively permeable, meaning that only certain molecules can pass through it. Inside the cell, there is a region called the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is a gel-like substance that contains all of the cell's components and is site of many cellular processes. Not all, but many prokaryotes possess flagella. A flagellum is a long whip-like structure that allows the cell to move through liquid environments. Again, not all, but some prokaryotic cells have appendages such as pili. Pili, also known as fimbriae, are short, hair-like structures that help the cell attach to surfaces or other cells. This attachment is important for several bacterial processes, including colonization, biofilm formation, and infection. Prokaryotic cells have a circular piece of DNA called the nucleoid. The nucleoid contains all the genetic information of the cell and is not surrounded by a nuclear membrane like in eukaryotic cells. In addition to the nucleoid, prokaryotic cells may also contain plasmids, small circular pieces of DNA that can be transferred between cells. One of the most important organelles in the cytoplasm of a prokaryotic cell is the ribosome. Ribosomes are responsible for synthesizing proteins, which are the building blocks of life. Despite their simplicity, prokaryotic cells are capable of carrying out all of the necessary functions of life, from growth and reproduction to responding to environmental stimuli. Please also do check out these videos here and don't forget to like the video if it was helpful to you. Thanks for watching. Today
So, if there's enough time in class, you will start on your cells. I suggest you write the information down first, labeling the cell, like putting the information in there first. Then I advise that you definitely make sure that after you write it all, then you glue, you cut and glue it on the appropriate places that it's supposed to be, and then color. Because you can color whatever, but the glue in and the scissor part, you gotta do in class. Unless you want to take it home. And we're not going to spend too much on this. We are still behind and doing those scientist projects and taking up multiple days of class period. We are going to still truck along and catch up. Um, so this should take us maybe a day and a half, if that. I remember when I had to do this, we got it done in class. And if you didn't, it was homework. So choose your time wisely. Because we will be rolling into chemical compounds in the cell and taking notes on that. And then we will be doing the cell and its environment and be done with this chapter. So get busy and get it done. And remember, it's a grade.